Premier has a brief statement, and then she'll take your questions. So, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming at this little bit late hour for you. This afternoon, BC said that they were shelving their threat to regulate what flows through a federally approved pipeline. In essence, point 5 of the plan that they released on January 30th. Let me be clear. BC never had the right to begin with. It was an unprovoked and unconstitutional attack on Alberta's economy in a rather transparent attempt to harass investors. Under Canada's Constitution, provinces can't do this, and for good reason. After all, who would invest in Canada if provinces had the power to pass any law they pleased to frustrate federal decisions that were taken in the national interest? Today's decision by BC is an important step forward. One small victory in a larger battle to break the landlock and get full value for one of Canada's most important products. In shelving point 5 and asking the courts to give it a right they don't have, BC is stepping back from the brink and abiding by the law. And this is a good thing. I'm confident that the courts will not give BC rights it does not possess under our Constitution. In other words, I'm confident the Constitution will be upheld and we will have seen the last of these ridiculous threats. Given BC's decision today, I am suspending Alberta's retaliatory measures. However, I do want to be very clear. If it becomes clear that this action is in fact part of a deliberate strategy to harass the pipeline and its investors with frivolous or unconstitutional legal challenges, we will act immediately. And we will expect our federal partners to do the same. Canada can't operate with a provincial government acting as though it is a separate country, with the right to pass whatever laws it pleases to serve its short-term political interests. That's no way to build an economy that works for every Canadian in every province. And it's no way to advance our shared goals to tackle climate change and to protect Canada's coast. And let me be clear on this as well. Alberta has never objected to British Columbia's desire to ensure that our national coastline is protected with the highest standards possible, as outlined today by Premier Horgan in his points 1 through 4. Albertans strongly support the goal of protecting our pipeline. And I'm proud that the decision to approve Trans Mountain is in fact paired with new protections that will guard our coast and, in large part through our climate leadership plan, reduce emissions nationwide. So the stakes are high for our economy, for climate action, and for our country. Alberta won't back down from this fight. To that end, the work of our Market Access Task Force continues. We will bring our positive message to all Canadians. We will prepare further retaliatory measures for use should the kind of thing that we just saw the end of today reappear. And we will continue our work with the federal government to ensure that this project, which is so important for the economy and the economic well-being of Canadians from coast to coast to coast, that this project finally gets into the end zone. And we will pursue all legal options available to us to make sure that that happens. In short, we will not ever back down defending Alberta's interests against those who would violate our country's laws in order to hurt our economy, to undermine our climate leadership plan, or to harm the economic security of hundreds of thousands of working Canadians. This is who we stand here for. This is who we owe our attention to, and we won't stop doing that. So I'm happy to take questions.
When you say that you're suspending Alberta's retaliatory measures, you mean the wine boycott is off? You're buying wine again?
Indeed, we will be buying wine again.
As of when?
We have advised the AGLC today, so they'll let us know when that can recommence.
And you're going to be doing talks again on electricity?
We'll carry on before. We hadn't been having high-level talks before, but work between public servants will resume for the time being.
The news are in the press release for a bit, in my mind, fuzzy on this. I mean, Is there any doubt in your mind that 0.5 has been pulled, or have you talked to Morgan's office to confirm that 0.5 has definitely been?
We have, and so in fact, they are moving ahead on points 1 through 4, and they are going to simply take 0.5 and at some point in the future refer it to the courts to determine whether it is something that they have the jurisdiction to enact. As you would have heard in Premier Horgan's press conference, the federal government is not joining them on that because the federal government, like us, believe that it's not a question that people don't already know the answer to.
Did Premier Horgan blink first in this dispute, or do you see this as a face-saving measure?
I think it is fair to say that in a small way today BC blinked. And we are happy on behalf of all those working families across Canada who need to see the billions of dollars that the successful completion of this project will bring to the economy on an annual basis.
I was wondering, going back to this idea that it wasn't really clear what he was getting at, because you go back to 0.5 and talk about restrictions on the increase of diluted bitumen. Mm-hmm. Today in the news release, they're talking about our right to take appropriate measures to protect the environment. Since he's changing the nature of 0.5. Mm-hmm. Is that how you read this?
I read that they are not moving ahead with the 0.5 as it appeared in the January 30th announcement, which of course is exactly what triggered this fight, is exactly what I spoke to John Horgan about on the day when we spoke about it. We went through his minister's announcement and we said, you know, carry on with 1 to 4, it makes good sense. You want the best practices in place, you want the best science, you want the best support, it makes good sense. 0.5 is illegal, you can't do it. And what we're seeing today in a somewhat nuanced presentation perhaps, but it's very clear that they are not moving ahead with 0.5.
It seems that if he goes to court with this question about appropriate measures to protect the environment, he'll win that because you even agree with that. The province has right to protect their environment.
Well, if they were to ask a question that vague, I don't think it would get into the courts because the courts need something with clarity in order to provide their interpretation. So that it's not a concern from a legal point of view.
Sorry, does this not just continue to delay the entire project and put the whole thing at risk?
No, it doesn't, because in this particular case, what they're essentially saying is that they're going to abide by the rule of law. And investors and interested governments and other folks are fully aware of where the law is on this matter, and they're fully aware of what the likely outcome of a reference to the courts around BC's ability to regulate bitumen or anything else that goes into an interprovincial pipeline. So because it is so clear in our world and because they are agreeing to abide by the law, and that's in essence what they're suggesting they're going to do today, the investor confidence returns. It was the threat to make a law which was in effect unconstitutional that created the uncertainty and changed the rules in a game of the game in a way that we could not tolerate, we could not abide by, and that we had to challenge, which is what we did.
What do you think that they back? Why did they blink? But I mean, you're privy to some of the backroom stuff. I mean, the feds had canceled one social services announcement when this happened. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Maybe the wine ban did. What can you tell us about why they changed their mind?
I think you'd have to ask BC that. All I would say is that at the end of the day, first of all, they didn't have the right to do this. It was illegal. Secondly, it is not in the best interest of all Canadians, but particularly British Columbians. One of the things that I said at the very outset is that in British Columbia particularly, it's not just about the pipeline, which of course is very important, but it's about all investment, because if you have a government which is prepared to make up rules outside of what it has the authority to do, then that creates uncertainty for all types of investors. And so that was the concern. I suspect that they heard, but I don't know. You would have to ask them.
It sounds like you're not convinced, though. You're leaving open the option to bring back the boycott.
We certainly, you know, we're not going to back down on this. We understand that the matter's gone before the federal court. We think that that's ultimately the most important decision that's going to occur on the pipeline's future going forward. We are reasonably confident in the success of that, but, you know, we'll have to see. You know, so we think we've got a path forward. And we've got we're pretty confident in it. But we didn't expect BC to threaten to rewrite the Constitution. So, of course, we need to be on guard for anything else that is unexpected.
So just in the point of the pipeline, then, can it go ahead?
Pardon me?
As far as you're concerned, can you begin construction on that pipeline now?
Well, I'm not the person doing the construction.
I understand you're with a shovel, even though you'd like to be, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you talked to the company, like Kinder Morgan? Is this going to be?
I think you'll probably hear from them that this is good news. It doesn't change their timelines at all. They're probably still waiting as well for the federal court decision. But generally speaking, I think they're pretty optimistic about this today.
Now,
Take Michelle's question, and then we're going to go to the phones.
The scenes between BC and the federal officials have been ongoing for about a week and a half, or maybe 2 weeks. Is this what Premier of Oregon announced today? Is this a result of those talks, do you think?
Well, again, I think I'm getting into a speculation rather than giving you the facts as I know them directly. No, that's no, you know what I'm going to say is you've seen what our government did. We delivered a message very clearly. We delivered it in a number of different ways through a number of different channels with a number of different strategies. I like to think that helped contribute to the change in tone we saw from BC today, and I'm pleased that has happened. And again, though, I also want to underline the fact that Albertans share a lot with BC. In addition to a love of good wine, we also share concern about the environment. We also share concern about the coast. BC had a price on carbon before Alberta did. I would suggest that Alberta's is probably the newest, shiniest, and most aggressive at this point. But we all share a desire to protect the environment, and so that is good. But I also, and I think ultimately many in office in BC also, believe in the importance of protecting the well-being, the economic well-being of working families across any jurisdiction. You can't be in government if that's not also front and center in the work that you do every day. And so I don't know exactly what the conversation was, but I do think that this is the right path forward. The idea of saying you can't have economic security without jeopardizing the environment, or conversely, you must kill jobs in order to protect the environment, that way of thinking must stop, because we will not succeed on either if we don't.
We're going to go to the phone lines now. Sorry, Michelle, I have about 10 questions on the phone that I'm not going to get to. So we're going to go to the phone lines now. Operator, please put through the first caller.
Yes, thank you. The first question is from Kelly Kreiderman of the Globe and Mail. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi there, Premier. I'm just wondering if this really is BC blinking at all today. You know, an environmental group has just put out a release saying this could pose another legal challenge for the Kinder Morgan project. And doesn't it just add to the uncertainty around the legal question for the project?
Well, as I said before, our view of this is no, because the uncertainty was created not by the legal ability of the province of BC to regulate what goes into an interprovincial pipeline. Anybody who has a reasonably working understanding of constitutional law knows that that was not within the jurisdiction of the government of BC. So when they started threatening to do that kind of thing, that is what created the uncertainty. The fact that they are now prepared to go to the courts and ask permission for whether or not they do have the jurisdiction is good news. It means they are playing by the rule of law, and I feel very confident that they will get the answer that they have been hearing back from pretty much everywhere else ever since their environment minister first came out with this idea, which is that they don't have the jurisdiction to do it. So there may be a bit of spinning in some groups, but at the end of the day, we feel very confident that in determining that they will not move forward with point 5, we have got back to a place where the government of BC is respecting the rule of law, which is all we ever expected.
Follow-up, Kelly?
I'm good, thank you.
Operator, please put to the next caller.
Thank you. The next question is from Chris Barco of the Calgary Herald. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, Premier. Kelly just asked my question, but maybe I can just follow up with something that the Premier of Oregon did say today. And he said that they do have legal precedents that think they have the ability to still do this and regulate this matter. Do you understand what he's talking about? And is there any indication from your lawyers, from your officials, that they might have some sort of wedge to work their way in here legally?
Nope.
Follow up, Chris?
Care to elaborate? No, that's fine. Thank you.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Thank you. The next question is from Lucas Meyer of 660 News. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Premier, for taking my question. A quick clarification and then a question. You said that your office reached out to Horgan's office. You didn't speak to the Premier directly, did you?
Today, no, I haven't.
Okay, so just really quickly, are there any plans to actually have a direct conversation with Horgan? And two, what does this mean for the task force going forward?
We have no specific plans right now. I'm sure we will have conversations going forward. As for the task force remains in place. Our view is that we have two things. We still have a pipeline that needs to get built, and we were successful at bringing together some strong leaders, both in the legal community, in the business community, as well as through industry, as well as strong political leaders that represent opinion leaders across the country. And so we think we want to keep that a group working together. We're going to continue to talk about the importance of this project across the country to make sure people understand the need for it. And at the same time, we're also going to look at other strategies that might be used should we hit any more speed bumps on the way.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Thank you. The next caller is Rick Bell from the Calgary Sun. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
And I'll actually keep it short today. Is it I know you're not building the pipeline, Premier, but is it your understanding that the pipeline won't proceed until after this BC court challenge is resolved?
Not this BC court challenge. No, not at all. I don't think this BC court challenge or the potential review will have anything to do with their timelines. I think Kinder is moving ahead, getting a lot of their permits and moving ahead on the project. But I think we all know we want to see what the Federal Court of Appeal says. We all know that's probably the most definitive thing that we will see from the courts in this. And as I've said all along, we're cautiously optimistic on that one.
So just so I'm clear, you don't believe that this will delay the project any further? The fact that
Not at all.
This challenge that Premier Horgan announced might take, several months or however long it takes in the courts to get this reference done. That
no.
won't affect the timeline any further. That won't be a delay.
We don't believe so because, again, there would have to be some significant grounds to what it was they were trying to engage in. And if it's on the basis of what point 5 was, we are pretty confident that, that we're not really looking at a serious problem here.
Operator, please put through the next caller.
Thank you. The next question is from Carrie Tate of the Globe and Mail. Your line is open. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Right now, this is just BC going to the courts to see if they have jurisdiction on point 5. Why do you think, even if that's answered, that this solves all the problem, considering there's a lot of other jurisdictional fights, including those in court?
Well, to be clear, I don't actually think that the reference case is a question of solving the problem or not solving the problem. I think it's. I think the fact of the matter is that the BC government never had the ability to do what they were suggesting that they would do. They've agreed to shelve it and go to the court and get some opinion on that. We are not particularly concerned about the outcome of that because, as I've said all along, it's been fairly clear to us, as well as the federal government, that this was a breach of BC's jurisdiction. And as I said, the concern lived in the uncertainty that was created by having a provincial government threaten to do something that was so definitively out of bounds. So that's why I don't see that as a major problem. We do know that the original decision of the NEB and the subsequent decision of the federal cabinet was appealed to the Federal Court of Appeal, and they had, as you will recall, extensive arguments on the matter back in September, October of last fall, and we're awaiting that decision. And that probably will be the most determinative role for the courts on this matter going forward.
Do you have a follow-up, Carrie?
Well, I'm just wondering, so the 0.5, once you go through court and you guys assume that it will work out for you, then we're right back where we started, though, on this fight, which, was a stalemate. Why do you think that this lessens that stalemate?
Well, I don't think we are, actually, because what triggered the dispute, which we've been all hearing about and engaged in for the last 3 or 4 weeks, is the notion that the BC government could enact legislation limiting what goes into an interprovincial pipeline. What's happened today is that the BC government has indicated that they will not move forward on that threat, and that they will first go to the courts to see if, at some point, to see if it's within their jurisdiction. And what we are suggesting is that we're not too worried. As long as they're prepared to abide by the rule of law, we're confident in what the rule of law already is, which is that they don't have that jurisdiction. So it is a small step forward today. Absolutely, getting the project forward for the remainder of the way. There are other issues that are in play, as I've just outlined, and those have to work their way through, and we're, as I said, cautiously optimistic, and we are continuing to do our work to build support and to educate as many people as possible about why this pipeline is so important for the economic well-being of our country, for the ability of working people across the country to have good mortgage-paying jobs for some time going forward. And that's really what's at the heart of this.
Go ahead, if you still have a question, Michelle. Graham?
Yeah, you seem very
Okay, and then we'll wrap.
optimistic that from a premier who has said he'll use every tool in the toolbox to stop this pipeline. You've got the Green Party leaders saying this pipeline will never be built. You seem quite confident everything's going to be fine now.
As I say, we're cautiously optimistic, and we will not stop fighting for it. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to comment on what the leader of a 3-person party is saying at any given time.
Yeah, who actually controls the balance of power in British Columbia? He's not nobody. He's pretty influential in BC politics.
The reality is that the BC government has certain tools in their toolbox. A lot of folks are struggling to come to terms with how many tools are actually in that toolbox right now. Our view is that as long as they continue to operate that way, we'll get this across the goal line into the end zone, et cetera, et cetera. But and we're going to continue to push every time somebody tries to reach for a brand new toolbox that doesn't belong to them. But in the meantime, we're happy to let the process work the way it's designed to.
Critics say that you've stepped down here far too quickly. What do you say to them?
I say that we were very clear all along that 0.5 was the part that we were very, very troubled by because it was illegal and because of the investor uncertainty that it created. 0.5 has now been pulled. That is good. We remain with a task force in place now, something we didn't have before, which is great. They're going to continue their work, which is great. We know we have tools in our toolbox, some of which people have seen, others which they would have seen if this had gone differently today. And we stand ready to fire it up again if unreasonable actions are taken by any of the key players.
We'll take the last
I'm
question.
going to go get some BC wine on the way. You said that it's took a personal toll.
It's possible there may be BC wine soon again in our house. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.